Hello and a very warm welcome to tonight's panel discussion. And the title is Are Threats to Academic Freedom Damaging Global Science? It's being co-hosted by the Royal Society and the Council for At-Risk Academics, or CARA. I'm Jim Al-Khalili, a Professor of Physics at the University of Surrey and a Fellow of the Royal Society. Okay, so without further ado, I want to introduce the two organisations that have brought us together tonight. The Royal Society is a self-governing fellowship of many of the world's most distinguished scientists, drawn from all areas of science, engineering and medicine. The Society's fundamental purpose, as it has been since its foundation back in 1660, is to recognise, promote and support excellence in science, and to encourage the development and use of science for the benefit of humanity. The Royal Society believes that academic and scientific freedom are essential components of excellent science which benefit all of humanity. However, these freedoms are under growing threat in many parts of the world, not least as a result of growing political trends of nationalism, populism, and authoritarianism. And so today, International Human Rights Day, marks the launch of the Royal Society's Statement on Academic Freedom, which outlines the Society's values in this area. The statement will be officially launched following tonight's discussion. Now, together with the Royal Society, this event is brought to you by the Council for At-Risk Academics, known as CARA. CARA's founding statement was issued from the Royal Society back in May 1933 by academics and scientists resolved to save their colleagues in Germany who were being expelled by the Nazis. They defined their mission as the relief of suffering and the defense of learning and science. No fewer than 6 past, present, and future presidents of the Royal Society, including CARA's first president, Lord Rutherford, were among its founders, along with 8 other Royal Society fellows. 87 years on, CARA continues its work as a rescue mission for academics at risk around the world, saving hundreds from persecution, violence, and conflict, and helping them to find places where they can continue to their work, their research in safety with their families at one of over 120 partner universities, until we hope one day they can return home to rebuild better, safer societies. Okay, so let's begin. Unfortunately, one of our panelists planned for this evening, Carlos Nobre, is unable to join us, but we do still have our 3 other panelists, who I'm sure you can see on the Zoom, on the gallery view, but let me very briefly introduce who they are. First of all, Zahir al-Bakkour, who is a CARA fellow from Syria, currently studying for a PhD in biomedical sciences at the University of Aberdeen. Zahir is interested in uncovering novel treatments for cardiovascular diseases. He's also a member of the Young Academy of Scotland, Royal Society of Edinburgh. Veronica van Heiningen is a human geneticist who worked for several decades in Edinburgh on disease gene discovery and function, and is now attached to the Institute of Ophthalmology at UCL. Veronica was born in Hungary. She came to the UK aged 11 with her Holocaust survivor parents. She currently chairs the Royal Society's Diversity Committee. And finally, Lord Krebs. John Krebs is a prominent scientist and public administrator. His research career reveals insights into the behavior, population biology, and neuroscience of birds. He became a crossbench life peer in 2007 and has held many influential positions in public life. John is the son of Nobel Prize winner Sir Hans Krebs, who was dismissed from his job as a respected scientist in Germany in 1933 because of his Jewish ancestry. John has set up the Sir Hans Krebs Trust that supports CARA partly through the sale of his father's Nobel medal. Okay, well, that's our 3 panelists, so welcome everyone. And I will direct my first question to you, Zahir. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the situation that led you here to the UK and what organizations like CARA mean to at-risk academics? I believe you have some PowerPoint slides that are going to help you tell your story to us.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much, Jim. That's exactly the case. The best way to answer your question is through telling the story through some slides and some pictures to give you what it means to me, CARA, not just in my words. So I'll just share my screen very quickly. So I am Zahir Al-Bakur, a final year PhD candidate at the University of Aberdeen and a CARA fellow since 2016. So like every time I present my story, I always start with mentioning that one day I had no hope at all. I had to work so hard while no one was able to help me or even guide me. At that very critical stage, I received an email from CARA, the Council for At-Risk Academics, saying that I was eligible for the support. And therefore, I always start with saying that you are the hope where no hope exists. What I mean by you is just everyone who is working on putting effort for academic freedom or securing lifeline for academics, and moreover, who is lighting up the hope in the middle of dark days. And just for me, the light of my life was lit up by CARA. So, well, I'm a pharmacist from Aleppo, Syria, and Aleppo was the city of life, as you can see in the picture, in which there is always something exciting happening. These pictures are a proof of history that are brief history that I miss basically every day. My friends with whom I spend most of my lovely memories, we all shared our big dreams and ambitions, and we all worked on them together until 2012. In this year, the Syrian war started in Aleppo, which was classified as one of the riskiest cities in the world. I used to live in a flat like this in this picture. To give you a sense of what it means to live there, I would like to ask you to close your eyes. And if you don't mind, just listen to this short audio. Well, thank you. I still remember when I was doing an exam and out of a sudden an explosion happened, which shook our building. This picture shows what happened, which we figured out after we finished our exam. After we finished our exam with its 10-minute extra time given. After the graduation, I was successful in holding a teaching position and run a lab with a pharmaceutical company. I qualified to hold these high positions immediately after graduations, as the universities and companies at that stage suffered of lack from expertise for a while. Everyone had left the country as the research resources were very low and the country was basically busy with securing basic life needs such as water and electricity. And not only the university was under risk of being attacked, even the pharmaceutical company I worked for was targeted a few times via air forces. And again, to give you a sense of what it also means to be working under this type of risk, I would like to ask you again to close your eyes, if you don't mind, and listen to this short audio. Well, so even under these circumstances, even if you do really well in your work and research, the ultimate end for any academic ambition is always going to be dragged into compulsory military service. The only option to escape that service is to escape the country into a refugee campus in any neighborhood countries. And for me, going through all that and reaching that stage, under this certain extreme pressure, CARA stepped in my life. They successfully secured a placement to complete my studies at the University of Aberdeen, in which I got involved in Physiology Friday events, presented my research data at international conferences, helped in arranging school visits on the Science Day, met exceptional and lovely people to whom I will be grateful for the rest of my life, won academic prizes, and also I'm so proud of my membership with the Young Academy of Scotland, the Royal Society of Edinburgh. For me, CARA is the door that was opened to continue my academic life, work, and research. At the time, I was in most need for it. For me, CARA's support didn't stop here. It went even beyond my academic life by supporting my family in my day-to-day challenges. At least today, when I go to work, I know I am leaving my family in a safe place. So whatever I say, I won't be able to pay back or express how grateful I am. Thanks for giving me a lifeline opportunity. Thanks for welcoming me with open arms and continuous support. And thanks for helping me to achieve dreams that were just about to disappear. So thanks to the moon and back.
Thank you very much. That was exactly, absolutely encapsulated in what we wanted to know from you, to hear about your background. Very powerful and evocative, particularly those sounds. I mean, I think sometimes you can watch and see these events unfolding in other parts of the world, but to hear the horrors of what it must be like living in Aleppo and other parts of Syria on the ground is really does bring it home. So thank you very much. Of course, there will, I suspect, be other questions coming your way during the Q&A session, but I'd like to move on to you now, Veronica. You're here as a UK educated but immigrant scientist. You came here as a young girl, and also as the current lead diversity champion for the Royal Society. How does your role now, your background, shape your thoughts on actions to secure academic freedom worldwide and practicing it here at home?
Well, I think the last bit is very important, that we do have to practice giving freedom of expression to everybody here at home as well. But anyway, the UK and its academic institutions have at all levels have traditionally welcomed and nurtured people of all ages and all stages fleeing persecution from around the world. And many of these incomers choose to train in areas of science, technology, engineering, maths and medicine, that's STEM, possibly because these subjects do provide useful knowledge and also provide prospects for broad employment and some sort of stability, but maybe also as a way of giving back to the host society. Perhaps because these people who've come from difficult areas have been tempered a bit like steel by vicissitudes and sometimes extreme environments, as we've just heard, many of these scientists have been highly successful. So it's not surprising, perhaps, that an unexpectedly high proportion of the fellows of the Royal Society were not born in this country, although this is barely remarked because heterogeneity is our hallmark at the Royal Society. But diversity of origins and thought and opinions and background culture help to weave a durable community, which I believe is more capable of delivering new ideas and technology than a more homogeneous homespun one. We obviously must continue to allow and encourage such incomers and offer academic freedom to all of them and all our homegrown scientists as well. So to achieve this aim, I think we need to root out prejudice and discrimination in our many distinct home niches and environments. And our political leaders, indeed the whole population, need to appreciate and support free inquiry in science, and not just science, but in all knowledge exploration areas. Both curiosity-driven and goal-oriented research needs to be supported and generously funded, because it's only with these two separate pillars working together that we are most likely to deliver the best solutions to the many societal and technical challenges that we face. more than ever in the world, in the wake of this pandemic and with climate change urgently encroaching, we need the broadest diversity of people and ideas to build a better world. And that is the theme for the UN 2020 International Human Rights Day.
Thank you, Veronica. A follow-up question to that. I mean, clearly, someone like Zahir has managed to make it over to the UK and CARA on a CARA fellowship, and the Royal Society, would absolutely support him and others like him. But what can scientific institutions like the Royal Society do to support rights and freedoms of scientists who can't make it out of their troubled homeland, who want to, if not all parts of the world are being as devastated as Syria, but there are still many parts where freedoms and rights of scientists are being held back and constrained. What can we do to support them in their country of origin?
I think it is more difficult, but maybe there is a new dawn, a new era. For example, with remote meetings, I think we're going to have a Commonwealth meeting of the Royal Society, which is going to be remotely organized, and actually many more people will be able to attend than the last one, although the last one was also very well supported, and there were really quite a number of fellowships and travel bursaries made available to scientists, young scientists who were really the focus of these meetings, and they were able to attend the meeting. So I think we can organize meetings. Sometimes I think it must be very difficult to bring people out of their countries, but if they can join remotely, that's something. And then the other thing, of course, is things like publications and open access to publications to allow access to knowledge to anybody, which I think is really growing and coming now.
Thank you. Yes, it is interesting, isn't it, that during this past year with the pandemic, a potential silver lining is that we are starting to really use the technology, as we're doing this evening, to connect people up, and hopefully that's something that can carry on because people can't make it to network physically. Thank you. John, can I come to you next? And maybe you can tell us a bit about your work to protect at-risk scholars.
Thanks very much, Jim, and thank you to the Royal Society for organising this fantastic webinar and for inviting me to take part in it. I just want to, as you've suggested, Jim, elaborate a little bit on the story of the Zahirs Krebs that I set up. And perhaps as a prelude, just to remind us, as you, Jim, and indeed Veronica have already said, that immigrant academics, including refugee scientists, have hugely enriched UK science over the past century. So we should see it as a privilege and not a duty to welcome scientists such as Zahir. Just to give one well-known fact, the remarkable haul of Nobel Prizes that the UK has reaped in the last century includes no fewer than 16 that were won by Jewish refugees from Nazi Germany. And my dad was one of them, as was Robin's dad, Max. My father was an assimilated Jew working as a medical doctor at the University Hospital in Freiburg in southern Germany, when on April the 12th, 1933, he received a letter from the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine placing him on indefinite leave and forbidding him from entering his laboratory, as Jews were no longer allowed to hold public posts. And then a couple of months later, on the 15th of July, 1933, the then rector of the university, the well-known philosopher and Nazi enthusiast Martin Heidegger, wrote to my dad and sacked him from his job. But actually by then he'd already left for Britain because scientists in Cambridge had heard of the problems of Jewish academics. And one of them wrote to my father saying that Sir Frederick Gowland Hopkins, who was president of the Royal Society and was one of the founding supporters of the ancestral body that's now CARA and head of the Department of Biochemistry, that he had admired my father's work and would be keen to invite him to Cambridge. And this is what my dad wrote. He wrote to Hopkins, "As a Jew, I'm about to lose not only my present position, but any possibility of working at all in Germany. I would consider myself most fortunate if I could continue my work in your laboratory." And Hopkins replied very quickly, almost by return of post, to say, "I admire your work so much that I'm very anxious to help you. If it should prove possible to obtain the necessary financial assistance, I shall be glad to find a place in the laboratory for you." And Hopkins did indeed find a one-year postdoc salary of about £300, 20,000 in today's money, from the Rockefeller Foundation, and invited my father to Cambridge, where he was warmly welcomed. Rolling the clock forward, in Jean Medower and David Pike's book, Hitler's Gift, they recount the following, and I quote, "In 1965, the Association of Jewish Refugees in Britain raised £90,000 in thanks for the help the refugees had been given 32 years earlier, and offered it to the British Academy for the furtherance of scholarship. The man they chose to present the cheque was Hans Krebs, a short, unremarkable-looking German Jew." Well, you can see his portrait on the wall behind me. That's my only slide. I don't have a lovely slide pack like Zahir, but that's a picture of my dad. My father's Nobel Prize medal used to sit in a glass display case at home, and I didn't really think anything about it until in 2015, I read a newspaper article saying that Nobel medals sold at auction could fetch many hundreds of thousands of pounds. So I checked with Sotheby's in London, and they confirmed that my father's medal was indeed worth a great deal of money. It was too valuable to keep at home, and I had a number of options. I could put it in a bank vault, I could donate it to a museum, or I could sell it and use the proceeds to support today's scientists at risk because of persecution in their own countries, who need help just as my father did in 1933. And I chose the last of these options, and in 2015 set up the Hans Krebs Trust, which aims to support biomedical scientists who've been compelled to leave their own country because of the risks they face there. And I've been really fortunate with my fellow trustees to work with CARA, of which Hopkins, as I've said, was an active supporter. And over the past 5 years, with CARA's help, we've contributed to the support of a number of young Syrian scientists who've been able to come from Syria to find positions in the UK, just as my dad came to England in 1933. And I particularly want to thank Stephen Wordsworth, the director of CARA, for his help in finding the right people to support. I believe that my father would have approved of my decision. He appreciated and benefited from the generosity of Cambridge in 1933, and he never forgot his gratitude to this country. The Hans Krebs Trust continues this spirit of generosity in today's context, where, as you said, Jim, in many parts of the world, just as in 1930s in Nazi Germany, scientists are under threat because of the political situation in their own country. I also learned from my father that science is a truly international venture and can help to build bridges between countries when all else seems lost.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you all for your contribution. And we have a nice solid half an hour, I think, now for Q&A. First of all, I'd like to ask Professor Robin Perutz, a chemist from York, who, like you, John, is the son of a Nobel Prize winner, Max Perutz. Robin, the first question from you, please.
Hello, Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, good. But just for a moment before I ask my question, I thought I'd say something about my role. I'm the Royal Society Human Rights Rep. We work with the UK, other UK academies. We also work with the international network. human rights network based in Washington. So, for instance, just only a few days ago, with Ahmed Jalali threatened with execution, he's the Swedish-Iranian scientist, disaster medicine specialist. So we protested by letter to various high-ups in Iran about the threat of execution. So that's the sort of thing that we try to help with. That, of course, is an extreme which has happened very, very rarely. So to my question, what I wanted to ask about was something that's perhaps come to the fore in the pandemic. Many scientists have been telling truth to power, scientific truth, as they believe, to power, for example, in Brazil and Turkey, but also in the US. So how do you think that academies like the Royal Society should support those who are threatened or abused for contradicting those in power?
Thank you, Robin. It's a sort of follow-on question from the one that I asked Veronica, but I think a bit more focused, a bit more specific. I don't know whether John or Veronica, John, maybe you can respond to this one.
Yeah, I'll kick off. Maybe Veronica can come in afterwards. I think it's a really good question, Robin. And I think in the countries where national academies are truly independent, which is the case in the United Kingdom, but not in quite the same way in the United States, because the National Academy was set up with a more directed role from government to provide scientific input. But where academies are sufficiently independent, I think they can express a voice to support scientists who are speaking truth to power. And often, I think, working internationally through the Inter-Academies Council is a strong way and powerful way of doing that. And I think, I don't know what the Royal Society would say on particular issues in this country, because on the whole, our scientists are free to speak truth to power. I know that there was quite a lot of complaint in Canada not under the present government of Trudeau, but under the previous government, where scientists were often gagged and weren't allowed to express views that were contrary to government policy. And I don't know whether the Royal Society of Canada spoke out on their behalf or indeed discussed it with the Royal Society in London. But I think it's a really important point, Robin, and I think there is a role for academies to support individual scientists.
Thank you. Veronica, did you want to add to that?
Well, I was reading just today that actually there's a problem about freedom of speech and academic freedom, even in Australia, which, like Canada, I suppose, so that some academics there are not allowed to voice their opinions, for example, in some universities on topics that are not their area of expertise, which is just ridiculous. You should be able to speak about whatever comes up and whatever is of interest. But I think it's relatively easy in a way to try and push countries like Canada and Australia to do the right thing. I think it's much, much more difficult to push countries who don't seem to care. And for example, I think there's a real concern about freedom of speech in Hungary. My mother wanted to leave Hungary ever since she arrived back from Auschwitz before I was born, and then it became impossible to leave during communism until just after the uprising in 1956, which is when we left. But it's all, she said, they will always be anti-Semitic, for example, but they're not just anti-Semitic, they're very, very right-wing now at the moment in Hungary. And it's a very difficult atmosphere. And I'm really a bit shocked, for example, that the EU hasn't made Hungary and maybe Poland toe the line more. I think it's a real worry, and I think we should be trying to work towards that. Of course, sadly, we are not in the EU anymore, but I think they will probably still listen to these aspects, and there are many other countries in the EU, I think, who ought to be pushing in that direction.
Thank you, and thank you, Robin. We have several questions coming through on Slido. Here's one from Lucy, maybe actually for you, Zahir. She asks, what do the panelists think are the greatest challenges facing academics today, both in the UK and abroad? And probably from your perspective, for example, those academics that you know that are still back in Syria.
Yeah, it's basically the academics, what they are facing there is just like the support to do the research that they are keen to do, basically. And because that's due to the lack of resources that they have got. But like, even with that, I know some of academics, they manage to find their way just to get out and then get scholarships, and they get to reach their work and their dreams in doing the work and the research that they are looking for. So basically the challenges there, it's far from now academic research. It's more about like securing basic lives, and then once that is secured, people there and academics, including academics, start to think about their research interests and what they want to deliver in Syria. And then there was like so much opportunity about doing some research about cancer cell lines just before the war, and then the country was going into a good place, but like we were unfortunate by having that war. Coming to the UK is a different story. It's once you come to the UK, because of the higher education system is completely different. So you need some time basically to get and to understand how the system here works. But like once you get that find after 1 year, once you do understand that, then everyone here is going to support you to reach your potential. So basically here, the whole support is there, and you can drive what you want to reach, and everyone is very supportive. That's what I have experienced.
I mean, what is it like for you? Presumably you have these conflicting emotions that, you've settled in the UK, you've been given this support, you're doing your PhD, you can see the opportunity for you to continue with your career here, but your home country calls you back. It needs rebuilding. How do you, not just you but others like you, how do you balance that, the need to want to go back, a responsibility, with the individual ambitions? And clearly that we're humans and we want to be able to make sure our family are safe, for example. Yeah.
So the first thing, what you feel about that, as long as you are here and you are in a very supportive environment, you are basically working so hard to reach the potential that you want to reach. You gain as much experience as you can, build up a strong network as you can, and then once the chance happens, once we have a chance to rebuild our country, not only me, a lot of people that I know and I'm aware of, we will all be ready to rebuild the country again and bring all that expertise back with us, and then start helping to building the country from scratch. But like even now, when this option is still not yet there, we are still really looking forward to it. And what my role is now at the moment, I've been trying to help people who are arriving in the UK, to help them to integrate a little bit better, to show them things that people here may not be aware of. Like when you come here, you miss your family and everything is new. So once you find someone that has gone through the same experiences, it will be far easier. So I've been trying to help people who are there how to manage to secure scholarships and how to show them the right way and not being misled. And then once they are here, I've been trying just to get them integrated far easier and then show them immediately what the differences are and how things work here. So.
Thank you. John, a question for you, I guess. This is an anonymous question on Slido. How do the challenges facing academics today, like Zahir, compare to the challenges previous generations faced, like your father?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I can give a very clear answer, but obviously one parallel, one similarity between my father's generation in Germany and Zahirs in Syria is just not being able to carry on with your work. So, you face a choice, and Zahir described very starkly and in a moving way his choice of what he had to do. And my dad, had he stayed, would probably have ended up in a concentration camp and have not survived. I think the details, obviously, of the circumstances are different. And one, I think, obvious change is this, what you started with, actually, the ability to communicate internationally and therefore build up international networks, which I think people are much more able to do today than they were in the past. And perhaps that gives them a greater possibility of finding connections in other countries. So I think there are some similarities and some differences.
Thank you. A question from Monica on Slido. Following on from the question on the role of academies, maybe Veronica, for you, this one, what do you think universities can do in very concrete and practical terms to support academic freedoms and turn them into a lived reality? How can a university rector, for example, foster a culture of academic freedom?
I think there can be many ways of holding meetings, allowing people to voice their opinions publicly and to debate publicly. And also, actually, I think it's very important these days to bring in the local population. I think it's important that everybody should be able to discuss what needs to be done. Resources are always going to be finite. So although Zaire says you can do what you wish in the UK, I don't think that's completely true, because you still have to fight for grants. Everybody does. And I actually think that in some ways, people who are coming in have been made stronger by all the adversity that they have experienced. And within this country, we now feel that there are a lot of people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds within the country, who were born here, including, of course, a lot of Black and other ethnic minorities who find it very difficult to achieve their aims. I think they even find it quite difficult to build their aims. So there needs to be a much better education right from primary school to get people interested in science from an early point. But actually, of course, it's not only science, it's all knowledge. And I think when we first discussed this meeting, we talked about how we actually don't only mean science, we mean every type of knowledge acquisition. And we need dialogue across disciplines, and we need to decide what the population needs and wants and how we can best satisfy that. So I think it's communication.
Thank you. A question for you, Zahir. I'm not sure if you can answer it, but someone asked, which countries do you think will benefit most from drawing on the scientific talent of the current Syrian diaspora, as the UK did, and other countries did, from the Jewish refugees after World War II? I think, just to follow on from that, I always am puzzled, that those trouble spots in the Middle East where you have to escape a war-torn country. Why, for example, are many going, for example, in the quieter sort of oil-rich Gulf states, for example, where there's money, funding for scientific research, for example, and language isn't a barrier. But you're spread all around the world, I guess, now.
Yeah, it's so basically people there, they have what drives them basically to integrate and do more is the opportunity that they are given. So once you give someone an opportunity to do what they want, after a few years that they struggled, went through so much in their lives, from from fighting just for their, as I mentioned, very basic needs. When they are given that opportunity, they live for it. So basically, any country can benefit from the people who are trying to get out. They are getting a candidate or someone who is going to appreciate a lot what is going to be given, and they will try so much, so hard to be better than better at least like equally qualified to the people who are in the same country. So basically, people that even like people with, or like countries that have got like a lot of money, they are still sending their candidates and their students to the other countries to gain the expertise and to gain their. So money is not just like something that is holding them. It's basically the experience that these academics are going through and the appreciation that they have. That what mainly drives them to do more and more. And I will just follow on what Veronica mentioned. That just it's not easy not everything is easy here. It's so difficult. I appreciate that. But what I really wanted to stress that even if you don't succeed in reaching what you want, you will be giving a lot of support from the university, from everyone in this country here. Everyone is trying to support you to reach your potential, and then that's all up to you. And you might be sometimes you might be lucky, sometimes you might be not lucky, but like there's so much support compared to other countries where you will basically be left alone trying to find your way in the middle of nowhere, basically.
Thank you. Well, there are two questions here from Emily. I think I'll ask them both together because I think they make sense. Emily asked, do the panelists think that organizations like the European Parliament have a role to play in protecting academic freedoms? And the follow-up is, inevitably, has Brexit had an impact on the role of the UK in conversations about academic freedom? John, maybe you have some insider knowledge from the Lords.
You could easily, Jim, unleash a Brexit rant from me.
That wasn't my intention, but
it's a daily activity in our household, but we've tried to keep it under wraps in the last few weeks, but it's coming back again. I think the whole question of setting aside the politics of Brexit, what's its impact on the UK's voice internationally? And my own personal view is that it could be a threat to the strength of our voice internationally. It could reduce our influence. We have to strive hard, and I think everybody is striving hard to make it clear that we are still an open, friendly, welcoming country for scientific endeavor, that we want to collaborate internationally, we want to stand up for our values of freedom and curiosity, unfettered inquiry into the world of discovery, whether it's in the natural sciences or, as Veronica said, in the broader sense of discovery of knowledge in the German word Wissenschaft. So I think Brexit is a headwind that we have to fight against, and that's, I don't want to go further than that. The role of the European Parliament, which was the other half of Monica's question, I'm never quite sure what role the European Parliament plays, actually. Technically speaking, of course, it does hold the Commission to account, but I've never seen very sort of coordinated, powerful action on this matter, but it's probably something that they should. Going back to what Veronica said a few minutes ago about some of the former Eastern Bloc countries like Hungary and Poland and Slovakia, which have been clamping down on freedom of speech. And, it is a shame that the European Union doesn't apply sanctions, although they tried to those countries, and the Parliament could support the sanctioning of those countries, perhaps more strongly than they do.
Thank you. Veronica, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I wanted to say that actually the Royal Society has been very active throughout, starting with, maybe it wasn't in Paul Nurse's time, but in any case, the president, for example, has been very vociferous in asking the government to ensure that we can still have scientific exchanges, that it's not becoming too difficult to bring in scientists from all around the world, but certainly from the EU, and that we can have good exchanges. But also the European Research Council is one of the bodies that was set up, I assume, by the European Parliament. I'm a bit ignorant on this, but it is a fantastic body because it really allows scientists to decide what they want to do, and then it examines all the background from in the grant proposals in great detail with a multinational panel, and I think really the best best proposals are funded quite generously, and they don't have to obey too many rules, write too many reports. It really has become a fantastic organization.
Thank you. A question next from Ben for you, Zahir. He says, thanks for your presentation, Zahir. What are your hopes for your own future and the future of Syrian researchers? And what can we do in the UK to support Syrian researchers?
Basically, so Syrian researchers are, you can define them as a group of people who are trying to reach their best, and they're trying to achieve what they want, even after they went through their most difficult times. But like, what drives them and what helps them is basically everyone is helping them already in the UK, and everyone can help them. So my hopes, and then my hopes even for researchers in the UK, that they do reach their potential among this very competitive environment nowadays, and then they can reach what they want, achieve what they want, appreciate what they have got more. And then I do really hope one day we will all go together to build up our countries. And then at that day, we will be very proud of what we have achieved here. So I do really hope that once we go back, everyone here will say they were doing really well here in the UK.
Thank you. I guess a follow-up question to this, to anyone, anonymous question sent in. Where in the world do the panel think academic freedom is most under threat? And where might we see the next major exodus of refugee scientists coming from in the near future? For example, Hong Kong. Do people have a view on what we should be mindful of or looking out for?
Jim, I could just offer one comment, and I think CARA would endorse that there's been an increasing challenge for scientists in the broadest sense, scientists in Turkey. Thinking of a country that's not too far from here, one could think of other countries in the Middle East where scientists may be finding it difficult to do their work, but I think the regime in Turkey has been quite oppressive, particularly for political scientists and people in the humanities who might be expressing views that are deemed to be contrary to the regime. And I think that biologists who want to teach the truth about evolution may find themselves under challenge in Turkey as well. So I don't want to say that's the only country to worry about, but that's a very big country, a sophisticated country with many, long history of cultural sophistication, which has turned in a rather negative direction in recent years.
Thank you. We have the final question, I guess, in terms of what we have time for, from Abraham, who asks, how can we promote more awareness and support for organizations like CARA? I don't know, Veronica, maybe in your role for showing the diversity at the Royal Society, whether there are things that whether we as the Royal Society or others can do to raise the profile of CARA. I mean, I don't know how widely known.
I mean, of course, the Royal Society organizes many meetings and discussion groups. So that's a good start. And it also has links with academies around the world who work together, I think, to support CARA and other organizations of that sort to bring people into the fold, to give them a voice, and to support them as far as possible, to keep them in the public eye. it's very difficult to know how we can stop scientists coming to harm in some countries. But I think keeping them in the public eye and making sure that their plight is known. And that is an area that I think actually all the academies in Britain, including the British Academy, not just the Royal Society and the societies like Royal Society of Chemistry, Institute of Physics, they can all participate and push this.
Thank you. John, did you want to add anything to that, given your close association with CARA?
I was just thinking that probably the best commercial for CARA is Zahir. People who have worked with support from CARA, and just, you know, you're just so brilliant, Zahir, in the way you can express your history and what you've achieved and the benefits you've gained from that. I think it's a bit like having Marcus Rashford on our side.
I like that. That's very good. The Marcus Rashford of CARA.
So that's what I would say. So I think we should look to people like Zahir to tell the story, which he's doing brilliantly, and promulgate it more widely. But we need some help from the press as well, probably, to bring that to people's attention. Just sort of add one final comment that we all know that the BioNTech Pfizer vaccine was developed by the son of a Turkish immigrant man who came to work as a Gastarbeiter in a Ford car factory. And, you know, that tells a story about why we should welcome people from other countries to come and work here. And you never can tell where it may lead. In that case, it's led to a white knight riding over the horizon with a rescue package.
Thank you, John. Well, I guess we should draw this to a close. It's been an absolutely fascinating discussion. I guess some of you will know that I was born in Baghdad and grew up in Iraq, and we were, I guess, fleeing. I think I've told Veronica this story when I interviewed you on the radio, that we were fleeing Saddam's regime when he came to power in the late 70s. I was 16, and I guess very, very much in the same sort of vein. And I've not gone back. My excuse is that I'm half English, and so sort of my English side of me meant that I didn't feel a guilty conscience not going back to Iraq when maybe the call was there. So maybe slightly differently, but we could carry. There's so much more we could be discussing, but I think we're running short on time. So I should just thank our three panelists again: John Krebs, Veronica van Heinigen, and Zahir Al-Bakkour. And I will now hand over to Sir Richard Catlow, who's the Foreign Secretary of the Royal Society, to thank everyone and close this meeting.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, and huge thanks to you and to our panelists, Veronica, John, and Zahir. Your contributions have been fantastic. They've been insightful, moving, and really inspirational. And I think it's been a really very important discussion. I think, as you know, and as many of the panelists mentioned, today is International Human Rights Day. And I think it's particularly relevant to tonight's discussion that the theme of Human Rights Day this year is Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights. The COVID pandemic has put increased pressure on already at-risk academics, and it's widened the gaps in the protection of academic freedom. Yet at the same time, the freedom of academics to study the outbreak has been critical to addressing it, just as we've heard. It's therefore so important that we stand up for the rights and freedoms of scientists globally as we embark on what we hope will be a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive recovery. And for these and other reasons, I'm very pleased now to launch formally the Royal Society's statement on the need to support academic freedom. It makes clear that we consider academic freedom to be central to the practice of science. It attempts to define what academic freedom is, both for individuals and for institutions, and it highlights what threats to that freedom might look like. So please do go and look at our website at royalsociety.org to read and share our statement. The Society places very high priority on this initiative in attempting to define academic freedom, and we are working in this field with other academies around the world. I'd also like to thank our friends at CARA for co-hosting tonight's discussion. As Jim mentioned in his opening remarks, CARA do vital work in ensuring at-risk academics can seek refuge from violence, conflict and persecution, with the hope that they too can one day return home to rebuild safer and more just societies. And we've had a wonderful illustration of the important role that CARA are playing with the very moving presentation we heard from Zahir. So finally, could I just first thank Aisling Doyle and the Royal Society staff for their work in developing this programme, and many thanks to you all for joining us here tonight. We've really enjoyed having you here. We've really enjoyed the discussions, which, as Jim said, could have gone on for much longer. We hope you found the discussions thought-provoking and interesting, and we very much look forward in the future to welcoming you back to the Royal Society in person. So thank you very much indeed.